Hello, and welcome everybody to another episode of Pod Strickland. I'm your host, Shwin and this episode 321. Thank you for joining us on the live stream. I'm joined, as always, by my co-host, Stacy, that is at StacyPen89 on Twitter. Stacy, how are you doing today?
It's a rainy Monday, but I got to the gym, got some good 3-on-3 ends, so yeah, been a good day so far.
You usually got to pay for that kind of action.
Yeah, 2-for-1 is the premium stuff, but yeah.
Good to hear that you're getting yourself into the gym. Hopefully, some of the Knicks are continuing to do that. Not just the guys that are playing for Team USA, who are playing tonight, by the way. So if you are desperate to watch some hoops, Jalen Brunson and Josh Hart should be in action tonight against, I believe they're playing Puerto Rico at 10 p.m. So check that out if you are desperate for hoops, just like most of us are. Before we get started, I do have to make a few announcements. The first being that the Strickland has and Instagram. Check that out. That is at the Strick.land on Instagram. We are posting all kinds of new content on there. Strickland also has a YouTube channel where if you're currently watching, you are watching that on YouTube. If you are and you have not done so already, please hit like and then subscribe to the channel. That'd be a huge help to us. The Strickland also has merchandise available on our website. Check that out. That is at the Strick.land. You'll find a link to the store on there. You can find all kinds of stuff. T-shirts, sweatshirts, hats, water bottles, even coffee mugs, you name it, we've got it. Check it out. Again, that is on our website at thestrick.land. And finally, the Strickland has a Patreon you can subscribe, which you can subscribe to. There are a number of different tiers. There is a $6 tier that gets you access to Pod Strickland, this podcast that I host every Friday with Prez. You also get access to the Strickland Discord, where the conversation never stops. You also get access to the Strickland mailbag hosted by Andrew Steele, aka Doug, aka the Doug Bag, alongside Dallas Amico. That comes out every other week. There are further tiers. There is a $9 tier that gets you access to Strickland Roll, my solo pod where I rant and rave about the Knicks even more. You also get access to wonderful premium articles by Matthew Miranda, one of the best in the business. There are further tiers. There's a $15 tier, $30 tier, $50 tier, $100 tier. This comes with a variety of additional benefits like listening on pod recordings, merchandise discounts, and even potentially co-hosting a podcast alongside yours truly one day. Whether you choose to subscribe or not, none of this would be possible without you. And none of this would be possible without Bet Online, which is your number one source for all your betting needs. Get the latest odds, lines, and match reports for baseball, boxing, golf, and more. BetOnline continues to be the fastest and easiest way to place your wagers, including live betting and your favorite casino and card games available to play right from your phone. Head to the website or use your mobile device to sign up today and get in on the action. Remember to use promo code BLEAV, BLEAV, for your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. BetOnline, where the game starts. So we do have content for this pod, and I just wanted to talk about it before we start getting into the exercise itself. But the idea was players on rookie contracts, drafting a team. So me and Stacy will both be picking 15 players apiece to round out a full roster. Again, this is not 2,525. This is not, it is strictly just players that are still on the rookie contract. So to be clear.
And that includes, sorry, good.
Yeah. And to be clear, just because Anthony Edwards signed an extension this offseason, he still counts because this upcoming season, he will still be playing on the rookie contract that he initially signed for. So players like Anthony Edwards, Desmond Bain, there are a few others. I'm sure we're all aware of them.
Soon to be one Emmanuel Quickly, hopefully.
Perhaps Emmanuel Quickly, maybe a Jaden McDaniels, Tyrese Maxey, whoever. All these players are eligible. And then I did want to mention this one player who is worth noting. Austin Reeves was in the 2021 draft class. Technically, he obviously signed to the Lakers as an undrafted free agent, but because of his odd contractual situation, he's already off his rookie contract and he's already on his second NBA deal. So he did not qualify under the criteria for this, but he certainly would have been selected had he qualified, or at least I definitely would have picked him. I can't speak for Stacy since we have not compared our list. I will say I thought this was a really, really challenging exercise. I kind of listed out X amount of players in each draft that I thought, would go into the pool. And one, I
pun
did
intended there?
No pun intended. But I didn't for me, I picked 3 rookies, like guys that were just drafted, because I'm not very familiar with this class and I didn't feel comfortable picking any more than those 3 guys. I will say off the bat, I suspect that moving forward, there will be more than 3 players that would have been selected in this exercise. Was I more knowledgeable about this draft class?
Is one
But
of the players 7'5"?
yes, one of the players is 7'5", and I will say I also thought it was really challenging because like. I mean, it's just really hard because there are players like, as an example, Jalen Green is a player I've been really critical of, but like I'm more critical of what he is now while still being somewhat bullish on what his upside is. So he probably like he went higher than I even initially expected to pick him just because, or at least I guess where I ranked him. We'll see where he gets picked. But like I ranked him a lot higher than I would have initially anticipated just because like when you're doing this, it kind of drives home one, I think how much talent there is, and two, it's just really, really hard, I think, to rank young players, especially when you like, you're comparing guys in the 2020 class that have 3 years worth of data versus, guys from last year's class who just 1 year, right? It's just so hard, I think, to nail this stuff.
You've
And
seen it in so many fewer contexts. And just to be clear, so this is players that will be on their rookie contract next season. So, for example, RJ Barrett was still on his rookie contract. I know most of us would pick him first overall. He would not be eligible for this.
right, yeah. So if you're
in the 2023-2024 season, you are eligible for, or you're on your rookie deal.
Right. So if you wanted, like, if you see this list on Twitter and you're like, oh my God, neither of these guys had RJ Barrett on their list or didn't draft him or whatever, don't get mad about it because he was not eligible for this. Neither was John Morant, neither was Zion Williamson.
LaMelo,
No, LaMelo is eligible under this. He's the 2020. He's the 2020 class.
That's true. Yeah, good point.
So anyway, we did not choose an order here. So I was going to suggest I was going to suggest that we could do rock, paper, scissors on air.
Let's do it.
Okay, but it's rock, paper, scissors, shoot.
Okay. Right. There might be a lag, so let's go with it and see what happens. This is the ultimate test for podcaster supremacy, by the way.
Yeah, and this is just we're just doing it's one and done. No best of 3, just one and done.
All right.
Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. All right, we both had scissors. Rock, paper, scissors, shoot. Oh, god damn. I got crushed. Stacy crushing
podcast supremacy.
Crushing my scissors with this rock.
Okay. Well, I am going to go. Oh, this is tough. There's really only 2 guys I would pick here. One was this draft class, and one I think is the most proven. I'm going with Anthony Edwards. Just I loved what he did in the playoffs. There's so much. He's still scratching the surface, and he's already looks like an all-star, an all-NBA player. I'm taking Anthony Edwards.
I had Ant number 1 also, just because like the potential of Wembanyama is definitely very, very appealing, and he would have been. Look, he's going to be my pick, but just to talk about Ant a little bit, like I think you have to value production to an extent, and not just production, but like impact, and he's just kind of nailed both of those things. So just funny because
there's also the potential, right? He's a freak athlete. Like I said, I still don't think he knows what he's doing out there. I don't want to say it like when people say he doesn't know what he's doing out there yet, it can be a little bit, but like he still has so much room for growth, and he's already really, really good.
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's just kind of consistently improved, and you see him make leaps in season. His rookie year, he started off terribly, and people were kind of shitting on him. And by the end of the year, if you look at his last like 40 games, the guy was putting up, like 25 basically a night on pretty solid efficiency. Then, the season after, he's a big reason why that team totally outperformed expectations, that Wolves team, right? They go 47-35. I thought he was definitely better than Towns throughout that Memphis series that they lost in the opening round. I mean, this year, like,
Do you think he was better than Towns overall, like last year and the year before?
not last year. Well, not in 21-22, but last season, absolutely. I mean, Towns barely played to begin with, and then I just think Ant showed so much in terms of like, look, that season could have gone completely off the rails for Minnesota because the vibes were terrible. Obviously, to start the year, Towns gets hurt. They've made this Rudy Gobert trade that clearly did not have the impact that was desired, and I don't want to say it doesn't matter because they have Ant. It still definitely matters, and I think it might end up being a reason why they
Ant
never.
is a Nick. You heard it here first, guys. Shwin says Ant will be a Nick in 2026.
I wish, but yeah, I mean, I just think that that's going to be a costly trade. But because of how he played and how he just kept kind of found a way to lead them to enough wins, they were able to get into the playoffs. I thought he played really, really well in the playoffs in and of itself against Denver. They lost in 5 games, but I thought that was a pretty competitive 5-game series. And Ant was a problem. He's going to be a nightmare. And I think
And he
offensively,
plays both ends, by the way. That's at a young age. That's not that's something you take for granted.
I hesitate to say he plays both ends. I think he
Ooh.
can play both ends. He can be elite on both ends.
I'm much higher on his defense than someone like Jalen Green or
I'm very high on his defensive potential. I think he's clearly shown he can.
I'm high on his defense now, I guess. That's the difference.
I think he has flashes. I don't think he's there all the way. If he was there all the way, they'd be a way better defense. They were 13th in defensive rating last year. He plays
with Jalen McDaniels.
Yeah, Jaden McDaniels is an elite wing. Yeah, he's an elite wing defender.
Obviously.
And Rudy, I think he when he's locked in, he's really, really good on defense.
And that's on and off ball, by the way. This is not just an on John Wall, I think, showed that he can be an on-ball stopper, but I think the off-ball stuff is, for me, with Ant, really the guy has a feel for this game at a young age that I think is on top of all of the gifts. That's part of it for me.
Yeah, it was really, really impressive to see what he did last year. So he would have been my number 1 pick. I think should we just do a snake draft so I get 2 in a row here and then you get 2 in a row and then we go.
Ooh,
yeah.
This is adding new. I don't know if I like the renegotiating after the fact. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. All right, I'm gonna go Wembanyama. This is like the one guy. It's funny because I did this whole thing about I didn't take that many rookies because I don't feel great about their potential. And guess what? I don't know much about Victor Wembanyama, but I'm gonna go with the consensus feeling and the bludgeoning I received.
So you're
constantly,
a sheep, Shwin?
Yes, leading up to the draft, that Wembanyama is this generational prospect and blah blah. But no, look, the size is for real. I think I'm really, really excited to see him on defense. And I think that's actually not being discussed enough. Is obviously the 3-point shooting, big man, all that type of stuff is very, very intriguing. But the defense is something we saw this with rookie KP, where it was yeah, he struggled with elements of, fouling too much and not getting pushed around.
Such a high impact.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I was thinking.
Yeah. But his impact on defense was there immediately. And I just don't see, I mean, maybe I'm wrong. Obviously I know I've never been wrong before. No, I've been wrong fucking every time I speak. But I think Wembanyama has the potential to just be a really, really high impact defensive player from day one. And then obviously once you factor in the other parts of his game, it's a guy that there's a reason why every team in the NBA was tanking, or not every team in the NBA was tanking, but the teams that were tanking were doing so with their eye on one Victor Wembanyama. So
shout out Omar, by the way. I'm sure he will love this pick. But the other question is, if you were going on defensive potential, do you think his defensive potential is that much more than a guy like Evan Mobley?
Yes. And it's not just defensive potential, right? It's the fact that with Victor, I'm again could be speaking out of my ass, but from what I've seen, I know the 3-point percentage wasn't great, but from what I have seen, that the shooting form and all that stuff, it looks very, very nice. I think one thing I always feel with young players in general, but especially these young big guys that shoot out from the perimeter, is you need to give them time to grow into their bodies, and you should probably just trust the shooting mechanics more than just the raw percentages. So it would like KP was not actually a good 3-point shooter in Europe. If you go back and look at his numbers in Europe, he wasn't a particularly great 3-point shooter.
Low 30s,
Yeah, and it's you need to give these guys time to grow into their bodies.
He wasn't a good 3-point shooter for a couple of years, really.
Yeah.
Like on volume, like it took like this Washington season is the first time he's been on high volume, and like I think young players, yeah, you said it, like you need the reps, right? Like
yeah, you need the reps.
Like if you look at the great shooters that come into this league, Steph Curry played 3 years in college. I'm not saying that he couldn't have come in at 18 and been a good shooter, but if that was, he would be the one. Desmond Bane was 23 when he came in, right? Even guys like Michael Bridges, it took him a year to really get his 3-point shooting going. So I think like there is no substitute for reps, and that's why like even guys like Rondo and Kidd became reliable open 3-point shooters at the end of their career, because that is the biggest factor.
Yeah, and I just think, especially with big guys, this is not like, Prez definitely has a better take on this than I do. But my feeling has always just been like young big guys that when part of their appeal is shooting, I just think they need time to like, get their lower body strength up, fill out all that stuff. And then like, even stuff like, yeah, the trailer 3 for big guys, right? That's always kind of like the weapon, right? Oh, like we can, this guy can just trail in transition and he'll be able to walk into threes. Like that's not an easy shot. Like, especially if your base isn't strong enough yet. And I think that's something we saw with KP all the time. And now obviously you see he's had time to fill into his body and really like put the work in the weight room, and he's reaping the rewards for it. So like, anyway, that's why I picked Wembanyama. I am trusting a lot of what people who are really into the draft have said. I am trusting the fact that, generally speaking, big dudes who move and can have a variety of skills generally tend to be high impact players. So I'm going with Wemby. With my second pick, I'm very, very torn on this. I'm going to pass on my number 3. Okay, I'm going to pass on my number 3 guy in my rankings, and I'm going to go with my number 4 because I think he has the potential to actually be better than the number 3 guy. And I kind of just like the defensive profile he has next to Wembanyama. I like the versatility he gives me. I like that he can play the 3 and the 4. No, it is not quickly. Is.
I think quickly can't play the 4. Fuck you guys.
No, I'm going to pick Franz Wagner. I think Franz Wagner is the most underrated rookie scale guy in the league. I think what he has done the first 2 years in Orlando, considering their point guard play is atrocious, has been insane. And one thing, okay, I forget who it was. If you want to bug somebody, go bug Prez. He had some fucking draft person on his pod leading up to that draft, and he was talking about how Franz was like in this elite class of plus minus college gods. I think he was like the only guy he had in his database above him was
Evan Mobley.
Was Evan Mobley and Mikal Bridges or something like that.
And I think Zion was a guy.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I think it was those
yeah.
And the person you might talk about is me, but go ahead.
Yeah, I don't know whoever it was. But like his on-off impact has been fucking crazy in the NBA too. And you got to remember, this is a team that has been. He did not walk into a great situation. They did not have a great point guard. They were in transition, shifting from what had been kind of a treadmill to the 7th seed for year on year into a full-on rebuild. His first year in the league, plus 8.4 on off. This year, plus 10.2 on off. They were actually a plus 0.6 in his minutes on the floor this year. So do the math. Without him on the floor, they were a minus 9.6. I just think he's really, really good. The overall abilities flashed as an on-ball creator, scorer, shooter, all that type of stuff has really popped. I mean, he's up to now. He was up 36% last year from 3 on 6.7 attempts per game from beyond the arc. The free throw percentage has translated. So he's at 86 first year, 84 last year. So I feel pretty good about the way his shooting is likely to trend. He's a high 2-point percentage guy first year 51.1, this past year 54.4, and he's actually like generating a lot of his own offense. Like he's last year.
Do you see primary initiator potential from him? Because I think that's the thing with you. There is another guy who's eligible on that team.
Yeah.
And most people would say Paolo is going to be that guy. Do you see that kind of potential from Franz in terms of being a guy who can, you can run your offense through as the main option?
I think he can do it in stretches. I mean, we saw it even when we played them this year, when the Knicks played them this year. I thought there were stretches where he flat out was doing it. And I've seen them in the fourth quarter. Granted,
he was guarded by RJ.
Yeah, that was not fun for RJ. That was not fun for me either watching it. But I mean, there's stretches I've seen of Orlando playing this year or this past season where like in the fourth quarter, they're just going to Franz as the primary guy running pick and rolls with him. And some of that is because the other options are like, Markelle Fultz, who teams can just go under on and dare to shoot, or Cole Anthony, who is actually developed, I think, into a pretty nice little player, but obviously he's not, to me, doesn't have he's not really geared to be that type of guy. But Franz is, and I just like the overall skill set, man. Like I mean, I said it before the draft. I thought the Warriors should have taken him with that.
He seems like a warrior, right? Just like
I just thought they should have taken him when they took Kuminga instead. Maybe Kuminga's ceiling is really high, but I didn't even rank him in this just because I think he's so far away from what he could be one day. So you're projecting a lot with him. But like, I just, man, the kid this past season, right? He averaged 18 and a half points per game, 4.1 rebounds, 3.5 assists, 48.5 from the field, 36 from three, 84.2 from the free throw line, 54.3 EFG, just under 15.9 PER. Like he's just really, really good. And again, the impact.
Do you think he'll ever be able to play the 5?
I think in really situational minutes, you might be able to get away with it.
And I mean, that's a way he should go to put on some weight, maybe up to 240, 245.
I still like him at the 3. I still view him as more of a 3-4. And I don't know, like I kind of just like him as a 3. Like I know that versatility is the big thing, but to me, at the 3, he's athletic enough to like switch onto the perimeter onto like 1s and 2s at spots. And he's obviously strong enough to hold up in spots against a lot of 4s. But I like him at the 3 because I just think he gives you so much size there and you're not losing a lot of mobility. Like, and he's not the greatest rebounder. So having him at the 3 is probably better than having him at the 4. Although I do think some of the rebounding stuff with him is weird. To me, he strikes me as probably like a box out guy.
He was a much better rebounder in college.
Right. And that's why I kind of wonder if it's just like, hey, WC, like Wendell Carter Jr. and fucking Paolo and all these other gigantic human beings
Mamba,
they have. Not even their guards rebound really well, right? Like
Fultz is a pretty good
Suggs, Cole Anthony.
Cole Anthony's a good rebounder. Yeah,
all those guys are good rebounders. So I'm just really, really high on him. I'm sure that some people will think this is a reach, but I don't know about can he be the number 1 scoring option, but I think there's absolutely a world where he's the best player in his draft class. And I think I would be very, very surprised if he is not. I'll give you a comparison for him. Andre Iguodala, right? I think he could be an Iguodala type player. Super high impact, maybe gets miscast in the wrong situation as a potential number 1 scoring option. I don't think that'll happen because I do like Paolo a lot too. But like, he might be miscast as number 1 scoring option. There'll be limitations to a team, I think, that has him in that role. But the impact with him, I'd be shocked if it's not consistent. I think he's going to be a stud. And he's a guy that I would be surprised if he's not a max extension guy the day that he's eligible for it next summer.
Well, being another 90s baby. So this it feels like a lazy comp to me, but I grew up watching this dude. Can I not say Detlef Schrempf, like Debo Sherman? But he feels a lot like Detlef Schrempf, right? Like just a Swiss Army knife guy. He can knock down the 3, great passer. I think one of Franz's most incredible skills to me is like if he's 6 feet away or 8 feet away, he can make that a layup, right? Just because of how long his reach is, the touch he has on kind of that. It's not a floater, it's not a layup type of thing. That's kind of who I compare him to. I do think he's ideal, or like Gordon Hayward's another one. There's flashes of Siakam, I think there. Although I think he's a little bit more controlled and all of that. I think, but I don't think Iguodala. I think he's a much better shooter than Iguodala.
Yeah,
But
yeah, he
I
is.
don't think that's a bad comp at all. Oh, uh, the last thing I'll say is I really wish that it all translated in that UCLA game. I'm sure
Man.
you do too.
Yeah.
But before the two of us just gush on the one Wolverine who's probably going to get picked here. Let's move on to the next pick. So I get two picks now, right?
Yes. Yes.
Um, okay. I think my next pick. It's a tough one.
I
There
want to
are
know if you ended up picking the guy that I was. It was toss up between him and Franz.
Is he on Franz's team?
Mm-mm.
I am going with Franz's teammate,
Oh wow. Okay.
Paolo Banchero. I really buy the guy as a big initiator. I think that's a really high level to reach, by the way. I think a lot
Yeah.
of people mention like most teams don't win with their um, best player being their center, right? And or a power forward even. I'm not going to be the one to say, well, it just happened this year, but I think this year is kind of when the exception. Sometimes the exception proves the rule, right? And
Mhm.
so if you look at a team that actually ran their offense through big, how good did he have to be? He had to be Jokic is a machine, right?
Right.
The last team I think that really ran their offense through their big and won that way was Tim Duncan. But I'm really high on Paolo. I still buy the defense. He has not been a good defender in college or the pros, but I don't think there's athletic limitations there. I don't think there's field limitations either.
I didn't think his defense was like atrocious last year. I mean, it was bad for a rookie type of stuff, but like
And he's
when
helped
I
by their environment. I mean, he's helped
yeah,
by playing next to guys like
100%.
Franz.
Right, 100%, 100%.
I think like his comp throughout college and when he was a prospect was he's like Julius Randle, right? He's a big dude he loves that mid range post up game. He can step out and hit the three. He's just a tank. He is an automatic double team. But I mean, you can probably agree with me on this. Like the feel, especially at this age, I would say Paolo right now is better at passing out of double teams than Randall is right now after this many years, right? Um, and so I'm gonna go with Paulo Banquero at number 4.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think I'm feeling good about, I like Paolo. Um, but I'm not upset about how the board is breaking to me. I will say that.
Yeah, there may be someone I'm forgetting, so I'm going to do another. The guys I have, I wonder if they're the same guys you would have. At 4, I have not picked a point guard yet. So it comes down for me to Scoot Henderson and LaMelo Ball, which is really tough.
Mm.
Um, sorry, Tyrese Halliburton fans. Sorry, Manuel Quickly fans. I think that is really the decision here. And I'm going to go with LaMelo Ball. If there's a guy who's proven to be able to shoot at the ability he has and that kind of passing ability, I mean, yeah, I think he has all of the abilities of a guy like Trae Young. He's not as good of an interior scorer. That is a bit of a red flag. But Scoot, I believe in Scoot's shot. I think there was that Kevin O'Connor tweet where he was like, "Look at his percentages from," but that mid range percentage is not bad at all for an 18-year-old. I am very high on Scoot, but I'm going to go with Lamelo because I think that there is a lot more there on defense and at the rim, but especially on defense. I think that I buy that guy is eventually being maybe it's because his brother was so good, but like the feel like all of the things you see with Lonzo in terms of being able to anticipate passes and all of that. I think LaMelo needs still more strength gains. I still think, being engaged as often as his brother was is the thing. But in terms of like being able to recognize offenses and all that, I'm gonna go with LaMelo Ball.
All right. I actually had Lamelo. I had Lamelo 5th on my board on here. So my number 3 guy is still available, And I think people are I can see why people are much lower on him than I have him ranked after I don't want to say a bad rookie year, but maybe not the take the league by storm rookie year that maybe many were anticipating, and then a second year cut short by injuries. But given the team I'm building, given the high defensive potential the team already has, and the need for a point guard who also can play very, very good defense, I will be taking Cade Cunningham. I think Cade still has.
Who just, by the way,
Yeah.
dominated the USA FIBA team for what that's worth.
Yeah, I mean, I understand the concerns with some of his, he's not the most explosive guy. And he's been very mid-range heavy. His 3-point shooting hasn't been great yet, but kind of like I feel with Wemby, I'm okay with that. Like I think Cade is a guy that I would still bet on the long-term shooting stuff coming around on him. He's been a really good free throw shooter over the last couple years. He's at 84.4% for his career. He's also been a pretty good mid-range shooter, which I think does matter. He was last year. Okay, let's just do his career because last year was such a small sample for him. But he's 38.1 from long two, 42.3 from 10 to 16 feet. You would like if the finishing at the rim would be better. He's at 58.4 at his size. You would like to see that, get up to maybe 61, 62% if possible. And maybe just shoot more, get there more. But I'm still pretty high on him. And I think it's worth noting that even despite his offensive issues and the fact that the Detroit team has been a fucking disaster for the last 2 years, first year in the league is on off plus 2.7, even last year plus 1.1. He's plus 2.4 for his career. He's tangibly improved the team playing, I think operating as a primary ball handler. When you thrust that on guys coming to the league right when they walk in the door, that's the hardest. It's the hardest thing to do. And it's why I think so many rookie point guards get labeled as busts or flops. And then obviously, you wait like 2-3 years down the line. It's like, oh, actually he's fine. He's actually exactly what we were hoping him to be. But again, I like the fact that this guy is a strong rebounder for his position. He gives you value in a lot of ways. You can probably speak to this more than I can. From my understanding, the passing vision and the upside there is tremendous.
It's not LaMelo level, but it's like the tier below. So.
Yeah, well, I'll take that.
Well, I'm not even saying that because of my pick. I'm just saying that like there's like that elite level, and it's like, but it's better than like it's much better than it's better than like Ja. Like he's a better passer than Ja.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go with Cade, and I like this defensive unit I have going with Wemby, Franz, and Cade. And I have the option now to really get funky. And I'm gonna have to. I have to.
Not do, baby. Get funky.
I hate to do it because I'm going very weird with my board here. So this is where it gets hard because it's like I'm ranking guys, and there are guys that I have a little bit higher because I think they're better now, but then I'm trying to weigh ceiling. So I will go with I'm gonna go. All right, I'm just gonna take. I need shooting. All right, if I have Victor Wembanyama, I need to space the floor. If I have Cade Cunningham, I need to space the floor. I need space for these guys to operate. I am taking a guy who will end up in his career, so long as he does not get injured. He is a lock to be one of the greatest shooters of all time.
Obi Toppin?
Yeah, Obi Toppin. No, I am going to take Desmond Bane.
Yeah, it's a great pick.
I need the space. I know he can shoot the ball. I think he showed a lot of growth last year as a creator. The playoffs were not great, but if I need to space the floor, I'm going to take him. I want to be very clear. This is a bit of a reach for me. He was 11th on my board, so not a huge reach, but still a reach. There are 4 guys on the list that I have above him that are still available to you, and I will be regretting perhaps greatly passing on any of these guys.
Yeah, I mean, Desmond Bane's. I mean, I think there. I don't know if there's much more creation upside, but I think that's been one of the bigger. Like, he can really get to his pull up. He can run some pick and roll. This is not just a 3 and D guy, right? It's not even just an elite 3 and D guy, which I think he is, but like he gives you more, which makes this, I think, a little bit of a better pick. And yeah, I mean, I think there's an argument that he's been their most valuable player, right? I think it's between him, JJJ, and John. I think there's arguments for all three.
Yeah, I mean, he was last year 60.6 true shooting on 26 usage. He shot in a down year for him, by the way. He shot 40.8% from three on 10 and a
There's
half.
only one other player, by the way, where I would have said 40.8% is a down year. So
yeah, right.
like,
Yeah, he's like I think it's really fun to make fun of Memphis because
and only 73% of his threes were assisted. So this is not like a catch and shoot guy. He will get pull ups. So
yeah, and I think even some of those assisted ones are like he's coming off of a pin down. You know what I mean? It's not just like
right, yeah.
standing around waiting for the ball. So I just think the shooting dimension he adds, the fact that he's a plus defender, he's another guy who has consistently been an on-court, on-off darling, whatever you want to call it. Last year, plus 8.6 on-off. Like he's just a high impact guy, and I think the fact that he's increased his usage every year and maintained efficiency at a high level just says a lot. And to your point about the passing, like last year, his usage went up from 23 the year before to 26, and his assist rate jumped from 13.5 to 20.8. So, like, this is a guy who's shown he's shown growth as an on-ball player. Do I think he's a primary guy? No. And I'm making a pretty big bet with Cade kind of on this team that Cade can become that guy. But I like the defensive unit I'm building, and I like the fact that, again, like, if I can lock in one of the greatest shooters of all time potentially here, I'm just going to take that and I'm going to go with it. And like, there are guys, I'll just give an example. Like these are the four guys I have above Bane on my board are Halliburton, Mobley, Jalen Green, and Scoot. Like any of those guys to me have higher ceilings potentially. But as far as just like, it's hard, it's really hard. This is why I had so much trouble like doing my board because it's a list of young players, all of them basically, but like there are guys that have shown more already versus guys that you're like, well, he can be better one day. And that's kind of where I was with Jalen Green, but I already have some pretty high risk here with Wemby and Cade. So I'm going to take the short thing with Desmond, and I'm one player away from rounding out my starting lineup here.
Yeah, no, I think it's tough to argue with that. You know what he's going to give you, and he's going to really space the floor. And there are some guys that space the floor for their position, and there's some guys that even if you have shitty spacing, they just have, because of the movement and everything, they're going to demand multiple defenders' attention. And I think all those guys. For me, I for those who are keeping track at home, or who aren't keeping track at home, I took Ant, Paolo, and the Mellow Ball. I am higher on Ant clearly than Shwin is, but
no, I had Ant number one.
No, sorry, Ant in terms of defense.
Yeah.
In terms of defense, I'm higher on Ant than Shwin is, but I would not. I would be remiss if I didn't admit that he needs some defense here. So I'm going to go with Evan Mobley.
Your favorite player?
Well, it's a player I got to talk a lot of shit about during the playoffs, but I still look. There is a reason why early in his rookie year, they played the Knicks played the Cavs, and you were throwing out. I think, threw out a Tim Duncan.
I did.
And I don't think a sophomore year that I think he was a victim of his own success as a rookie.
Yeah, he was good last year. They just had a shitty playoffs. It is what it is.
He was a defensive player of the year type of candidate, right?
Yeah.
He got dominated by Mitch, which I hope continues forever. But in this draft exercise, I'm going to bet that it won't. I think the guy will fill out. I think he's a guy who can play the 4 and the 5. I think he can give you a lot of what Bam gives you on defense. But once he fills out, just a much bigger and like Bam on steroids on defense, which, considering Bam is probably one of the 3 or 4 best defenders in the NBA, is saying a lot. I buy the shot actually long term. I like his form. If not the 3-point shot, I think the mid-range game will get down. I've seen his post-up moves. The guy has good mechanics and footwork. I think he just needs time. And I need a rim protector because I'm playing LaMelo and Paolo, and I can't trust Paolo, so I need him next to a. Would I like him? And I think for the weaknesses that Mobley has on defense, I think Paolo is a reasonably good fit in the sense that Paolo is a good rebounder. So I think if I wanted to play Mobley at the 5, that is a good option. But yeah, I'm gonna go with Evan Mobley.
Nice. Yeah, I think that he's a really good pick here. If you had taken Wembanyama, I would have gone Ant, and let's say the rest of the board fell the way it would have. I probably would have. I mean, I would have picked Mobley over Bane, because I still think the defensive potential is huge with him. I also like I was just kind of fucking around with numbers last week, and he actually like they won their minutes this past season when he was the center and Allen was off the floor, which is a big progression for him. So like I think some of the stuff like I mean, look, they ran up against. We talked about it during the season. We were talking about the entire season. We're like, we're a really bad matchup for Cleveland. We're a really bad matchup for Cleveland, and lo and behold, we were a really fucking bad matchup for them. And I think he kind of became a scapegoat, especially because like we're gonna talk our shit too, right? Because we had to hear the entire fucking year about like, oh, they've got 4 All-Stars, they got Donovan Mitchell and all this shit. So you're gonna shit talk, but we can't let that cloud from like what he is as a player, and he's a tremendous talent. The offense is really like I think it's a lot further away than I would have hoped at this point in his career, but like you have Ant, you have Paolo, you have LaMelo. He's like he'd be in a spot here where there's way less. It's not as much of like a problem that he's not a super developed offensive player yet, right? And the defensive stuff, like he can anchor. You need guys that can really cover up for LaMelo and Paulo to a lesser degree, but still like a necessary one. And I think Mobley is look. He's still got that again. The defensive potential is not. It's not just potential, right? Like he's actually a very very good defensive player. And even in that series against the Knicks, like I know Randall was hurt. I know he wasn't whatever, but like their defense, like Cleveland's issue is not defense. They did not lose that series because of defense. They lost because they couldn't score. So it's not just potential with him; it's actuality. He's actually still impacting games at a high level defensively. And the scoring and the shooting, I'm not gonna lie, I'm way more down on that than I was before last season. But I still think like you see some of the passing, like reads that he can make and all that type of stuff. There's still a lot of talent there. Like there's I had him ranked again on my board for this. I had him 7th. So technically you're getting great value here, Stacy.
Technically, I definitely think so. But what I need really now is a 3-and-D wing, and I need someone who's a really impact defender. And if they can't shoot, I gotta lean defense again for the reasons you mentioned. But I gotta lean with a guy who I can at least buy the shot. Been a good free throw or decent free throw shooter. Shot 40% from 3 on limited range or limited volume last year. I would imagine some people will call this a reach. He probably fits more of the role player vibe than. I'm not taking Scoot, which could be a generational mistake. I think that guy's a great player. I'm gonna go with Jaden McDaniels. I think in terms of fit, I first of all, like this is a guy who was billed out of college as more of a shot creator type. I think that's been building a little bit slowly, and I think so. Kind of what you're mentioning with bigs.
It's also like out of necessity. Like he hasn't had the usage available to him. Like they've had Cat, they have Ant. Like even Rudy.
Even at Washington, he struggled to create his own shot. Even though that's like, it's like whenever a big guy can fucking cross over and shit. We did this with KP, right? It's like, oh my god, he's Kevin Durant. I do think there's more there though than that's what's happened. Maybe he ends up being Harrison Barnes with better defense. I just think that fits my team really well. And when I say better defense, I'm really high on the defensive potential. I think there's a tweet that came out today that he's 6'11", so he's grown. And I'm comfortable about getting some of the other guys that I really think for depth reasons I would want on this team. Especially it's not that I have LaBello and I have some really good and Paolo. I have some good passers. That kind of for me makes me feel like I don't need to add like the impact of a guy like Scoot or Tyrese Halliburton. Would be less than a guy like McDaniels who's so impactful on defense and not just impactful in the sense that he can lock you up, but he is one of these team defenders that can just plug a lot of holes. So I'm gonna go Jaden McDaniels. Yeah, you can ask your mother about plugging too many holes.
All right. So I don't hate that pick. It's a little bit of a reach to me, but like with what your team is, I think leaving some of these dudes I have ranked above him makes sense. Hopefully McDaniels and Ant can figure out how to play off of each other. I know that'll be a big challenge for them.
Have they ever played together?
No, I don't know. But it feels like they would work. No, I really like McDaniels. I had him 17th. I think you could argue, like, I kind of felt like he could have been anywhere up to 12, 13. But just the way I had it ranked out, I had put him at 17. So yeah, I mean, I really like him. I think that he is, he's a guy that's just going to be awesome. And, all right, I'm going to, do some things here with my next two picks. We are all in on shooting. We're going to go all in on shooting here. And because of that, fuck, I don't know. I don't know if I can do two picks in a row. I'll do one. Okay. I'm taking Scoot here. I'm just gonna do it. Like, I just taking the shot on Scoot. He is 10th on my board. He is 10 here. There are actually two guys available above that I have ranked above him. So I'm just gonna take the dice roll here on him. I think that if his shooting comes around, and I do think it will in time, him and Cade can be awesome together. And like, obviously, like, they could play without one another. I think it gives me enough ball handling. But I still need more shooting. I still need a little bit more size on the wing, I think, here I could use. So I am going to go with they're going to be good players regardless. I'm taking there's so much. All right. I will go with Jalen Williams here. I thought he had an awesome rookie year. I was really, really high on him coming out of the draft. he shot 52% from the field. He was 35.5 from 3, 56.7 EFG, 81 from the line. Athletic wing. I think the rebounding is fine defensively. I like the passing and creation upside with him. And again, I just like the fact that his wingspan, he's like a 7'1", 7'2" wingspan. He gives me another guy with Franz that can kind of fill in on the wing alongside Cade and Scoot and these guys. So I'm going to go Jalen Williams. There are two guys that, again, I have above him that are still on the board who I feel like I might regret passing on in a few years, but maybe they get back to me. But I like that. Look, I just think I needed a little bit more I think I have my creation bets now in-house. I have them locked in with Cade and even Franz. I have enough Bane we know can at least be a secondary guy. And then Scoot and Williams give me some upside plays. So from here on out, I'll be doing a lot more plug and play stuff. But those are my two picks here.
Cool. Well, there's I think that those are good picks. I think Scoot probably is gonna, if we redid this exercise in a couple of years, probably go a lot higher.
It's just so hard when you haven't, like, even if you believe in the talent, there are guys that like we've seen play in the NBA. You know what I mean?
And I just think being able to shoot from three, like, I think that's an underrated thing. It's like, it's still really hard for scouts. Like, let's just admit it. Like, Cade Cunningham has not shot the ball well from three, but he was a 40% 3-point shooter as automatic in college. He was great in high school.
Right.
It's really hard. It's why so many people spend so much time, and like, I'm not saying that there aren't people who are much better at it than the average person, but it's not a solved problem to the extent that you would believe it was, given how much data and given how much time has been put into this. I am going to go with a double London's Theory special.
Okay, can I guess them?
Yes, and one of them is one of your favorite players in the entire world.
Okay, well then it's definitely not somebody I love. Well, one is definitely Shaedon Sharpe, right?
Oh,
wow.
So when I say London S Theory, think of his first name.
Maxey. Or Halliburton? Is it Halliburton you're going with?
It's yes. The answer is yes. I'm taking.
Okay.
The one guy who I think that I I probably could have gone with instead is Jalen Green. I would imagine you probably would have taken him over Maxi at least, maybe Halliburton too.
Yeah.
Um, I look, we love to hate on Halliburton. I think that people who put him on the same level as Jalen Brunson are kind of nuts. The pull up shooting is nuts. Like he's shooting at a high volume from way deep. I think that's not something we expected, and he can get to the rim. I think he needs more of an in between game. But I also will say this: the weakest part of his game is defense, and it is crippling. But and even the off ball stuff, I think a lot of it is cheating. But this is a guy. Look, I'm high end Devin Vassell's defense still, even though it hasn't shown out because of what he showed off ball in terms of that feel for the game. I think that still exists for the Halliburton. He just hasn't been in environments that have prioritized that and unlocked that. I definitely see that coming at some point, especially if he's really as committed as to winning as he says he is. And for all of he can be a corny dude, but like I do think he's committed to winning, and I believe in that. And then Maxi, you're talking about speed to get to the rim and really good 3-point shooting. I think I'm still probably a little higher on the defense than you are, but I think I probably have to take a bit of an L on that relative to my pre-draft kind of view, because I have to acknowledge that some of the size limitations, the fact that he's not super long, are probably always going to limit him there. But I don't think he'll
He has a shorter wingspan than Quickly, right?
Yeah, I mean, Quickly has been a much better. Like I think in college you would have said they were pretty close. Maxime is maybe a little bit better of an on-ball defender, but Quickly's been more effective. And I think part of that is like Max, I think is 6'6", 6'7" wingspan, which is not bad for his height, but and he's got the strength to hold up. He's not going to get bullied, but it's going to be it takes some more time. And I don't think he's going to be a super impactful off-ball player. Do I think he can get to the point where he's not a liability? I don't think he quite is right now, but he's also not a good defender. I think he can get to just like neutral. I think that speed and shooting combo is pretty effective. And he's like a really smart off-ball player. Like this is not a guy that needs the ball in his hands to be effective. The ball in his hands to be effective. So when I look at my guards, I got LaMelo and Ant. I'm coming in with Tyrese who can play with both of them. I like that. I probably do need to add more defense, but I just went defense first in my last two picks. And if I'm honest, besides like Quickly, I don't think there's a whole lot of guys that were worth the pick that would have added a whole lot on defense.
Yeah, I think I would say that there's actually a decent amount of defense on the board still. I think like maybe not at the guard position, but I think there are guys that you can get to work around that. So you took Halliburton, you took Maxi. I still feel like I need more shooting, right? It's the premium skill. I want more wings. I want more shooting. So I'm gonna go back to back here. I am leaving Jalen Green, who is higher than both of these players on the board for you if you want him, because while I do think he has a higher upside, certainly as a creator, I don't know that it really matters, because as my roster is currently constituted, I feel like I have guys that I would prefer to have the ball than him, and I'm going to be more focused on getting those guys the ball and running offense through them. So I want guys who I think are elite play finishers, will be good shooters, elite shooters, whatever. Maybe even one of them already is. So with my first pick here, I'm going to go with Benedict Mathurin. I think me and Press talked about this maybe a couple weeks ago, but like, I kind of think it's weird that he's not like, I almost think he should be getting more hype. He had a really good season for a rookie. Like he was 16, just under 17 points per game last year.
6th man of the year candidate. Like,
yeah, he definitely was at least, he at least got the consideration. He deserved it anyway. 60.7 points per game last year, 4.1 rebounds. The assists, not great with him, 1.5. You would like to see that come up. He was not the most efficient in terms of his scoring from the field, just 48.8 from 2, 32.3 from 3. But what he does do very, very well is he gets to the free throw line. 47.7 free throw rate. He's always there, and he's a great free throw shooter, 83%. His true shooting last year, 56.6 for the year. I mean, that was really, for a rookie guy, that's really, really impactful. I like the way he can play in transition. I think he's a dynamite athlete. I like the way he can play off of a guy like Cade and Bane and all these Wembanyama and all these other dudes. So I'm going to go with Benedict Mathurin here with my first pick. And then with my second pick, look, like I said, you can't get enough proven shooting, especially tall guys that can shoot. So I'm going to go again with a little bit of a reaching a little bit here. I am going to pick Keegan Murray with this pick here. Keegan is, I think Bane is going to be one of the great shooters in NBA history if he stays healthy. I think Keegan has a shot. Keegan is a phenomenal shooter. At 41.1 from 3 last season. He did that on 10.1 attempts per 100 possession. I think he's more than just a shooter, though. He can put the ball on the deck. He's not a stiff. The defensive rebounding, you'd like it to be higher. And I think in general, my team, I'm going to have to hope some of these guys get better on the glass. Hopefully having guys like Cade and Bane who contribute in that area. Maybe Scoot will too.
And I think it's worth noting that we're picking young guys. So that's an area that should improve, right?
Right. So, yeah, I want the surefire shooting, and I feel like out of the group that I had anyway, of these 30 guys or whatever, I feel like I got two that I feel really, really good about in terms of what they can, what they're going to shoot today and what they're going to shoot long term. And I have a super tall wing in Keegan who I think opens up options. Which, look, given my roster, I think I have a lot of guys that open up options, but he should profile well next to anybody, really. I mean, he's just a fantastic lights out shooter, and I'm very high on it.
Yeah, I think that's very reasonable. I think, I mean, I actually didn't realize the 3-point numbers were that high. That is a really good for a rookie, especially. And at the 4, it's you were saying, I was going to ask you, right? Do you think you'd be one of the greatest shooters ever controlling for position, or just period?
I mean, definitely controlling for position a bit, right? Because it's always hard to compare, like, what is Keegan versus a guy like Dame, right? Dame probably, I think Dame is like a 37, 38 guy for his career, but it's like, look at the fucking shots he's taking and he's creating. And it's just like, it's always hard to judge that. But I guess maybe like
but 41 on that volume.
Yeah. And in that family tree of like tall wing shooter guys, I mean, he'll be up there, right? Like a guy like Rashard Lewis, he wasn't as good as Keegan is in terms of putting the ball on the deck, I don't think. And in terms of just a pure shooter, like the numbers we saw from Keegan, they would shit on what a guy like Rashard Lewis did in his career. Rashard Lewis is a really good player. So, I mean, I just think Keegan's awesome. And, again, Mathurin gives me a little bit more. I'm trying to like mix and match upside and maybe not as much upside, but definite surefire value today. And honestly, even with Mathurin, like, I think that what he can do today is he's going to get better. Like his defense was kind of a disaster last year, and you would just expect over time, like
their whole team's defense was.
Yeah, right, exactly. And just like
Miles Turner holding up the Jon Snow gif.
Yeah, and just like if you look at Mathurin, when you just look at Mathurin, like I know he's not been a great defender even in college either, but like you just have to think like with those physical tools, like he's strong as hell. He's fast. He's quick twitch. He's fast. Like that, you can turn this guy into a at least solid defender. If not, like maybe he's not going to ever be a huge baseline moving defender, but at least a solid team defender. He definitely should have that capability.
Doesn't seem like the guy that can get picked on, right? So
yeah.
So you took Mathurin. Who's the pick before that? Sorry.
Keegan.
Keegan, that's right. So yeah, I think those are pretty solid picks. I am going to take the guy who both of us have been flirting with a little bit, but not putting a down payment on.
We've been looking at him across the dance floor.
But now I'm going to finally pull my Shah Khan out and try to dunk on Codgel and take Jalen Green.
You're buying him a drink.
I'm gonna buy you a drink. Jalen Green, I think he can be very polarizing. It's a shitty situation. It's that Houston is garbage. We'll see how they look this year. I think a guy like VanVleet will help them. But I mean, if you look at the shot creation abilities, the athleticism, and the shooting ability at that young, again, like shooting at a young age like that, like it is not. He shot 34% from three, but I mean, he was taking a ton of really hard shots. Like, well, he took more pull ups out of 3-pointers than Emmanuel Quickly. I think maybe even than Brunson. So this is a guy who was taking a lot of pull ups, still finished with 34% from three. That's pretty respectable. Good free throw shooter. He's got the athleticism to finish at the rim. He only finished 59% last year, 68% as a rookie, but he's got those moves. There's really shot creation ability. I'm actually higher on the passing than a lot of people are.
I thought he, like, considering they were a fucking disaster last year, I actually thought, like,
they didn't have an offense.
Right, and adjusting for that, like, I'm actually, like, I think there's a chance he might be the most underrated guy that we have on here because that situation sucked so much. He's a guy, like, those scorer guys, like, they can always, when you put him in a losing team like that and a team that just had shitty culture and no accountability and all that stuff, it's like the Booker thing, right? Early in his career, where it's like, oh, he's just scoring. He doesn't care about winning. He's empty stats guy, whatever. I think
I wouldn't go that far, but yeah, like it's in the same vein. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not saying he's going to be Booker. I'm just saying, like, it was a lot of the same criticisms levied at Booker got levied at Jalen Green. And I'm more than anything, I'm just excited. Like, I don't think the Rockets are going to be good, but they're not going to be a joke. Like, they're going to actually run professional schemes on both ends of the ball. And we'll have a much better idea of, like, is he just a guy that can score, or is he a guy that can impact the game, and is he capable? I mean, the defensive stuff with him is really the big concern, and I think that's a fair concern.
Even then,
just because the size worries me a little bit. Like, he's a pure 2 to me. He's not like a 2-3 guy, right? Like Edwards, even though he's only 6'4", he's obviously built like,
it's like D Wade, where like he was 6'4", but everyone's right. Like, well, was he really? There was a debate. Is he really a guard? It's like, well, he was a guard, but like that was a bigger dude than 6'4".
But would you rather have James Harden?
Yeah. Well, when I go to the park, I don't try to dunk like Dwayne Wade. I've never had the urge to just fucking yam on a dude like Kevin Garnett. That's why I never do it. Of course, I could do it in an instant.
I'm just always trying to draw fouls. Get to the line.
Yeah. Not lately. I've been playing after I lift, so I can't shoot anyway. So I play like Josh Hart. I just try to go to the glass, and not do anything else. Okay, I think that those are both. So it's Jalen Green I got, but yeah, like I think but to your point, like even if the defense doesn't come around,
the scoring is there, man. Yeah,
and like if he ends up being Bradley Beal, like I know you don't like Bradley Beal, but like 17th in this draft, I'll take that. Like
yeah, I mean,
and I don't think that's not an outlier outcome by any means. No. That's like maybe a 75th percentile.
I mean, he's way ahead of where Beal was at the same point in their careers.
Yeah. So I like him there. There's a few guys I could go. I have drafted a lot of offense first guys that aren't great defenders right now. So I love Alperen Sengun, but I don't think I'm going to be able to do that. I think that there's a couple of other. Could I go with a guy like Amen Thompson, who has great. Who I need more wings now. I think Green, to your point, is just kind of a 2, really. So
yeah,
a wing in that sense.
That's the one reason why, like, I think it's in my heart of hearts when I'm like judging him, I'm like, God, I wish you were like a little bit bigger, because then I can project you out in different ways. But I feel like he's just a pure 2, right? And it's harder with those guys. Not impossible or anything. And I'm obviously to your point, like, look, if you can score 21 points a game at his age and like at a not unreasonable efficiency on a team that is absolutely that has just not even just that it's dog shit, but it has like no identity or cohesiveness to it. You're probably okay. Like he's definitely more than fine. I think Jalen Green's gonna be a good player.
Yeah. So Amen Thompson would be my other choice here. I just think even like I'll say this, I think Ben Simmons is a great player.
Oh, you're taking Amen?
No, I'm not.
Okay.
I'm saying why I would wait is the shot really is a big question mark. And like it's so tough. Like if you cannot project even league average shooting, which I don't think you can with him, as
awesome as he is, like he is going to be like a great creator in transition. In the half court, he's always going to have a little bit of a ceiling. So I'm going to go with the guy that I want the Knicks to take. He was not the only guy I wanted the Knicks to take. The other one is not on is not going to be considered. But I'm going to go with Devin Vassell.
Nice.
I think he's my team needs defensive wings. He has not been a defensive wing in his professional career. I am still holding a little bit on to the fact of it's not just that he was a good defender in college. He was a preternatural defender in college. Really was 2 steps ahead of the offense at all times. And it's fair, I think, to assume like he played for obviously a coach who isn't going to give anyone any passes. But the reality is there's they had a lot of not very talented players, and their priorities weren't winning basketball. I still really buy Devin Vassell's defense. Anthony Davis, the first few years of his career, he's putting up numbers on offense. Like everyone said, he was a generational prospect on defense. Most people forget it took him a few years to really start to understand and reach his potential on defense. So I still buy that with Vassell. He brings shooting, he brings shot creation from the wing position, which Paolo gives me that, but off the bench, I can kind of still run the same kind of offense through Vassell a little bit. Gives you some positional versatility. He can guard, I think, 1 through 4. So I'm comfortable playing him 2, 3, 4. I'm going to go with Vassell, but I do think there's some good candidates as well. There is another really great off-ball defensive player who I left off, but I do.
Oh yeah, he's the next pick. Don't worry about it. I will be taking Emmanuel quickly here. I had quickly as let me just see this. Item 16th on my list that I had here. He was just after Maxey and just before Jaden McDaniels. Honestly, I would have had him higher if the playoff performance was better, but I think it's fair to be critical of it. And like, I do think, some of that stuff offensively is a small sample size, freak occurrence, but I can't prove that, right? Like that's just what I think. It hasn't been like he did not have a good playoffs, at least offensively. I thought defensively he was really good. Like he's been throughout the last couple of years.
So on off reflected that as well.
Right. So like I'm still, and I think Scoot is really, really good. I think he would be a good guy to have off of Scoot. And I like how I think he just profiles well next to guys like Cade and Scoot and even somebody like Bane. I mean, I would love to see Quick and Bane to play together. I think they'd be awesome. So I like the shooting upside here also. Like I know that he's so streaky. But I think it's easy to forget. And I do think people have forgotten just how good he was from like December through the end of the season. I mean, this wasn't like the year before, right, where he really struggled, and then the last 30 games or so, he just took it to another level. This was
a significant chunk of that was after the Knicks had kind of mailed it in. So
yeah,
not like a few games, but
yeah. And I just think like this year was so different, right? They were in the mix the entire way. He was a super critical component to.
He dropped 38 in Boston Garden with Brunson out.
Yeah,
that is not a fluke.
And that was and that was a game Boston was desperate to win. They had just dropped a horrible game to Brooklyn.
And Randle played, and quickly was Randle played, Jason Tatum played. Unquestionably, the best player on the floor that night was Emmanuel Quickly. That's not nothing.
Yeah, and I just think like it's easy to forget because of how bad the playoffs were, at least optically. But when you just look like again, just go back and look at his numbers from when they made that rotation change December 3rd onward. Like the guy was consistent. Like he was like a 40% 3-point shooter. He put up I think he ended up like 57 true shooting for the year. Like this is a massive leap he made. I forget what he shot from 2, something like 52%. But these are significant leaps he's made. He's only 24 years old. He's a plus defender. He grades out well by like every single nerd metric that exists. And I still think his upside as a creator is probably not given the credence it deserves because the national opportunity, I guess you could say he had was in the playoffs really. And he just did not perform to the level that we saw in the regular season. So that's something obviously he needs to get over. And like, that's the main hesitation, I think, with anything related to him. But like, I mean, I know for 82 games a year, this guy's going to help me win fucking ball games. And I know he's going to play well. I don't have to worry about who I play him with. He can basically play with anybody and he's going to be good in that lineup. So I'm very, very happy that he fell to me. And I am going to now. This is a weird part of the board because I think you're getting into a lot of like there's guys that have proven stuff, but how good are they? And then you have a lot of young dudes who just haven't played a shit ton. But I am going to I'm gonna reach a little bit. I'm gonna value size perhaps to an extent that overvalues physical tools over maybe just the raw impact and skill sets. But I still think he fits the bill. He gives me even more shooting, gives me a little bit more size in the wing, and I am talking about Trey Murphy. I buy the shooting. There's no reason for me not to. He was 48.4 from the field, 40.6 from three, 90.5 from the free throw line last year, 61 EFG. Again, another guy, like to see the defensive rebounding be better, but I also think it's a weird team where they have a bunch of guys that can rebound. So I don't know how much of that is he's a bad rebounder versus there just aren't a lot of rebounds available. But I love the way he fits next to basically everybody on my roster. The impact stuff with him hasn't been great. I do think his defense has not been what you'd want it to be given kind of what his rep was coming out of college. But, kind of like you went with Vassell, I'm going to do the same thing here with Murphy. He's way more of a pure play finisher than I think people talk about. Because I've heard, Pelicans people and even some national people talk about he can be a 20, 25 point per game guy or something, and they need to give him more usage and blah, 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 blah. But like, he's just not shown a lot in the way of creation in terms of, especially specifically creating for others. Weird stat that I heard this week. I forgot where the hell I even heard it. But I think he ran only like 30 pick and roll ball handler possessions here, but in those possessions, he was like the most efficient player in the NBA. So yeah, I'm good with Trey Murphy here. And I like how much shooting I now have and how much size I now have on the wing.
Yeah, no, that's a great pick. And I think that there's definitely going to be some funkiness. They also, the way they run their lineups, I would, the guy, and he's had two good shooting seasons, by the way, right? He shot 38% from three as a rookie. He's, the volume is there, right? This isn't Jeremy Grant.
Yeah. And even in college, he was a great shooter too.
Yeah. So and he's 6'9".
Yeah.
That's if he's Otto Porter, that's a good outcome for this pick. If he's a whole lot more than, but I think that's a pretty good pick. For me, this is a little bit difficult now. I think there's a few guys I'm looking at. I think that I think I'm going to go though with a ceiling pick. I could probably use a little bit more girth at the big positions. But I'm going to go Chet Holmgren. I am still really high on him.
It's a good pick.
He hasn't gotten to play much. But here's the thing, right? We were talking about before. If you don't have to worry about injuries, and maybe that is like kind of being too simplistic. I think when people talk about these skinny prospects, not just him, Wemby, it applies to as well. It's one thing to say, well, look, like there could be a post-up guy who's going to dominate him, right? There's two scenarios in which this happens. One, it's Jokic, who dominates everyone. Two, it's like a bench big, like Chet got like bodied a couple times by Kenneth Lofton. Guess what? Kenneth Lofton isn't playing major minutes for anyone. Like it's just not.
I do like Kenneth Lofton though. He's a fun player.
He's a fun player, but I'm saying is that like you're not going to evaluate your entire like it's the same thing with guards, by the way, right? Like people will say was quickly good in the playoffs. Like Kyle Lowry took him to the hole twice and like bodied him, and it's like and look at his impact. Because the thing is, we focus on what happens with when the ball is in someone's hand, but I do think, and I'm not saying that one is necessarily more important than the other, but I am saying that like the way we view on-ball defense versus what people do off-ball and what isn't necessarily as doesn't pop to your eye as easily is more important. And the things that Chet is going to be able to deter on defense, I think still makes him to me a KP level defensive prospect, and I'm talking about KP before he got hurt. And what he started to come back to in Washington, I love the jump shot. I think he actually has a little bit more wiggle. I know that's Prez's like least favorite word. I think he has a little bit more ability to get himself free. Not just, and it's more than just like ISO. It's also like if somebody does close out, but it's a decent closeout, but you can get them off balance. It's those kind of things. And with that release, I really like Chet Holmgren here. I'm excited to see what he does in Oklahoma City. And then with my other pick, this is starting to get hard. I will say I still really like Alperen Şengün, but he's not going to be my pick just because I just took a big. But, I'm going to go with Amen Thompson here. I really I just told you why that there's a little bit of a ceiling on that kind of player, but
the athleticism is crazy with him.
At 6, he is. People have called him. When I say people, you're going to immediately disregard this, and I wouldn't blame you. But Kevin O'Connor called him 6'7" John Morant. I don't think that's outlandish. He has that level of speed. He is actually a better vertical athlete, in my opinion. He's 6'7", super long. At the minimum, he should be something like Ben Simmons. Can you get anything out of that jumper? I'd take that risk, especially on this team, because I have a lot of creators, right? I have LaMelo Ball, I have Paolo, I have Ant, I have Maxey, I have Halliburton. I don't necessarily. I will need him to be a little bit better off ball, but if he can get those jump points in the half court and get those guys that I just mentioned in transition, I like that a lot. And help my wing defense, which I do think, besides Jaden McDaniels, I'm a little bit lacking in here. So Jaden McDaniels and the potential of Devin Vassell.
Yeah, I don't hate that pick at all. I think Amen is one of the only. He's the third guy from this draft class that I even ranked in my.
So you didn't have Brandon Miller.
I did not have Brandon Miller. I didn't really like. I get the vision with him, and I actually think he'll be fine. Like I think he's gonna be a really good pro. I just feel bad for him that he went over Scoot because I feel like they're always gonna get compared, and I just think Scoot's a different level. But I didn't love Brandon Miller, like in terms of what I had seen from him and then what kind of his statistical profile was coming out of college. But I think he'll be a good pro. I just didn't have him ranked here. And I just think like from what I can gather, the sell on Miller is like, oh, he's like a tall wing shooter guy. And yeah, he can handle the ball a little bit and whatever. But like, I think the main appeal is tall guy that can shoot the ball well. But he didn't actually shoot that well from NBA 3. I think he shot really well from college 3. And maybe that's something that, again, we talked about the young guys, they need time. Maybe that'll rep out and that's fine. But I don't know if he has an outlier skill. And maybe Amen doesn't have an outlier skill, but I know that Amen is like an outlier athlete, even at the NBA level. And at his size,
I don't know if he's an outlier playmaker, but he's a really good passer. Like,
yeah, that's right. Yeah, and I think like even if he's not some preternatural, reader of the floor, the fact that he is so athletic gives him an edge in terms of like the opportunities he can create just through the openings he can generate with his athleticism. So to me, like I that's why I had him in my top 30 or I ranked 34 guys. He was 26 and like again, like I mentioned at the start, like he could easily be like top fucking 10 guy after the season or something, or within 2 seasons. So, yeah, I think he's a really solid pick. Okay, I still need I want shooting. I like defense. I like guys who space the floor. I also am a fan. I don't know if you know this, but I am a fan of the New York Knicks. Unlike Big L, and I am going to take Quentin Grimes here.
He's a guy I struggled to rank, by the way. I'll say that.
I tell you, this was like the hardest exercise I've done in a long time, just because of how tough it was. By the way,
harder than like the top 25 ranking.
Yeah, I think so, because with young players, it's like the odds are we're going to look back at our teams in like a year and we'll be like, wow, we're fucking idiots. Can't believe we left this guy off the board. Can't believe this guy went last in our draft or whatever.
Bones Island.
Yeah, right. but yeah, I just think, the shooting is for real. As far as I'm concerned, the defense is more than for real. I think he has all the makings of a varsity athlete and a elite on-ball defender. And I'm like, I don't know. I still think people are do I think he can be like some high usage creator? No. But the stuff like his passing vision pops. Like it does pop.
He's not Courtney Lee, you know what I mean? Like he's it's not just a catch and shoot or pump fake and like a 2 dribble pull up, right?
That's
so
the quiet force Courtney Lee to you. No, he's just, there's something there. I think the mid-range pull up game for him it's within every, like, there's no reason to not suspect he's capable of it. Like he can get to those spots. It's about his comfort level pulling from them and also just his efficacy in doing so. He was good at it in Houston. I think part of his appeal as a prospect to the Knicks was not just that he was a shooter, but he was a good pull-up shooter his final year at Houston. Obviously, the shooting is translated. We don't know so much about the pull-up just because he doesn't really get those opportunities with the Knicks. But, I think my team has a strong defensive ethos, and we value shooting over here. So Quentin Grimes fits in. We're both 11 players. 11 players picked deep now. So we are getting into interesting territory here. I love Victor Wembanyama. He's my guy. We're building through him. He's the number 1 pick. He is the future of the franchise. But I need some insurance. I'm not sure he's going to be ready to start at the 5 immediately. I don't know if he can play all his minutes at the 5. But there is a 5 in last year's rookie class that I do think can do it. And I will be taking Walker Kessler here.
Wow.
I think
that was not the name I was expecting to hear.
I know you were thinking I was going to say Mark Williams, who I was tempted to pick.
I thought you were going to say Duren, but
no,
I think Kessler was better. I don't know.
Yeah.
I think
Duren has the all this offensive ball handling, whatever shit, and elite athlete, blah blah blah.
And on defense, I think the defensive potential is there. He just
100%.
I think the side is that like everyone was like, we could have had Duren. It's like, bro, compare his defense to Jericho Sims. Forget the 2 bigs who played. Like the Knicks would have been really fucking bad if they didn't pay. And like, yeah, let's be real. If you were telling us to draft Duren, you wanted to get rid of Mitch, or you wanted to say it's not worth paying him $50 million a year. So that trade-off, but yeah, I think Walker Kessler, as much as I think he's a little overhyped as like the central piece of that Utah Donovan Mitchell deal, like he's a good player. Like
he's a really good player. He's a fucking phenomenal rebounder. He is an already highly impactful defensive force. I think he can play if Wemby's shooting translates. He can play next to Wemby. We've seen him play next to Markkanen. Obviously, they were really, really effective together. And I like the fact that this is a guy that has already proven he can start in the NBA. He started 40 games last year. He obviously was not the perfect player, but he was really, really good. I mean, in 23 minutes per game last year, he averaged 9 points, 8.5 rebounds, 2.3 blocks. He knows exactly what he is. He's not taking a bunch of perimeter jumpers and all this type of stuff. You would like to see the free throw shooting be a little bit better. Only shot 51.5 from the line. I'm okay with big guys that don't shoot well from the free throw line as long as they're giving me other things. And Walker Kessler is, and I think I have enough good free throw shooting on my roster to get away with that. So, I'm taking Walker Kessler here. And I got to say, like, he was a guy that I was not particularly high on coming in. And the way he played last year was, he was just really, really impressive. So, I think I'm happy with this pick. I do think there's a world where both Jalen Duren and Mark Williams end up being better than him. But I really feel like with centers, unless I feel comfortable about what you can do as like an actual offensive hub, just give me the guy that's really, really good on defense and really, really good on the glass and knows his role and can set monster screens, and that's about it. Like, I'm fine with those limitations.
Monster screens, you were talking about Mitchell Robinson.
Yeah, unfortunately, Mitch did not qualify for this exercise either. But yeah, I don't think Walker Kessler has some tremendous upside, but I think what he is right now, that's a guy that's going to be a solid starting center for a very, very, very long time. Yeah,
barring injuries, 15 years probably.
Yeah,
right? So.
yeah. So
and a very impactful center.
Yep.
I definitely agree with that. I'm not a Jalen Duren hater. I would probably have taken him over Kessler, but I definitely get. I don't think that's bad logic at all. For my 24th pick, I'm between 3 players. There is the guy with the highest ceiling. This is a guy whose jump shot was a question coming out of college, and I'm just gonna go with it. Even though I have a lot of guards in this ilk, I wanted this guy in the Knicks really bad. He's a freak athlete and shot 34% from 3 as a 20-year-old.
Ivy.
Yeah, more Jaden Ivey. So he's a guy who kind of fell under the radar. I think his defense is much worse than anticipated to be. But I mean, the bet is athleticism, shooting ability, and solid feel. I'm gonna go with that. I probably have a little bit of a logjam now with him, Maxey, LaMelo, and Tyrese Halliburton, and Jalen Green. And I probably don't have enough wings, but I think part of it is that wings don't mature as fast. I could draft Amen's brother. I could draft Jet Howard. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to have to, again, this is like the 3rd or 4th pick in a row where I've looked at Alperen Sengun and said, nope, sorry. But I'm going to go with a pretty safe bet in Corey Kispert.
Oh, wow.
Just a really good shooter. I can bet on that. I think he's underrated as a defender. That team has been a shit show for a while. But maybe I'm over. This is a guy putting up 12 points a game on 40 plus. He's going to do that for his career. It's what he did in college. Not just a catch and shoot guy. He can pull up. He can run off screens. He can attack, close out. And pretty underrated, or I would not pretty underrated, but a good defender for that profile of player. I'm going to go with Corey Kispert.
Nice. I had Kispert. I actually didn't even rank him, to be honest, but I'm going to add
thanks.
Yeah, I honestly kind of just glossed over him. I actually really like Kispert. I think he's a really solid player. And I thought he had signs last year of it's not. I don't think he's going to be some dynamic off the bounce guy or something.
I think he'd be like Hawks Bogdanovich though. I think he can reach that level.
I think he can really attack the rim off of closeouts, and I think he's a lot more athletic than people think. Not in terms of maybe his vertical pop, but he's pretty fast. He's not a slow.
Just say it, Shwin. He's athletic for a white guy.
Yeah, I know. But he moves fast. He's not just standing around out there. I think he's a competitive defender, not a great one or anything, but he's a competitive defender. I thought he played well against the Knicks, honestly, every time we played them. And so maybe that's
maybe part of my pick, which is
it totally could be, but I don't know, that kind of matters. I feel like I like him a lot. And he has a skill that is there, right? He can shoot. That matters. It matters that you already know this thing and you're not projecting and you're not hoping and it's there. But I'm gonna have to take a little bit of a projection jump here. But I liked crapping on this guy his rookie season just because it was fun to do. But I did like him a lot coming into the draft. I did like what I saw from him in Summer League this year. And I do like how competitive he is and the energy he plays with. And that is Jabari Smith.
You only crapped on him because of Omar, probably.
Probably. But I really like Jabari Smith. I think that what he showed in Summer League, look, Summer League is whatever. I try not to take too much from it, but he did exactly what you want to see your second year guy do, right? He went to Summer League, totally crapped on the competition, just like Keegan did. And again, just we talked about with Jalen Green, I think there's a decent chance here that this is a guy who looks a lot better just because they will be a professional program next year. And they're not going to be a joke. And they're not just going to be, fucking having KPJ run 7,000 pick and rolls a game, pretending it's a reasonable option. So I just think the guy he was a high pedigree prospect for a reason. I wish that he would finish a little bit better around the rim. That does concern me. Obviously, he didn't even shoot the ball that well last year either. But like we talked about many times on this, you kind of have to look over that a little bit with these younger dudes. He was a strong rebounder this past season. 20.3 defensive rebound percentage. The passing in general, you wish it was a little bit better. But I still believe in this guy. I think he's got a pretty bright future, and I expect to see better from him moving forward. And then with my second pick here, there's a lot of ways I could go. I could, maybe take an upside play. I could go with the shooting guy again. So I'm gonna take a bet here. I'm gonna go with a guy that, do I feel great about his ability? I don't know, and I'm especially worried about the actual the health, quite frankly. But if he hits, he is an elite shooter. No questions asked. I'm taking AJ Griffin from the Hawks. Gonna roll the dice here on him. I think now I feel better about my wing spot. And I don't think there's too much more to say about that. I know he's knee concerns and all that stuff is very valid. There's a reason he dropped in the draft, but I'm comfortable taking a risk here.
Yeah, I mean, I good for us. I think the combination of youth and shooting, it seems like both of us have been prioritizing it, and it's because I can't. I don't think I can harp on this enough. Like the more you think about it, it's like that is how many prospects do you read? It's like if the shot comes around, he could really be something, right? And like AJ Griffin has wing size. He locked up RJ Barrett one game. So there's clearly defensive potential there for what it matters. And, I think that he has, when you have shooting, that helps. I'm going to go into another direction with a guy who the shooting has not been as much of a sure thing.
Oh, man.
Can you guess the pick?
Do I hate him?
I don't think you do.
Okay. Is he on Oklahoma City?
Yes, he is.
Is it Josh Giddey?
You hate him? I didn't know that.
No, I don't hate Josh Giddey, but because you said I didn't hate him, I have these two guys. I have Giddey ranked above another guy who I do hate. But they're ranked low for a reason. Yes.
Giddey is really advanced as a playmaker. For all the talk about his shooting, he's 73% free throw shooter and a 33% three-point shooter. I don't think we're talking about, mid-career Rajon Rondo here. I think he should be reasonably effective on catch and shoots. I love his situation playing next to Shea. I think they're really going to be good together. And just a really advanced. Same thing with the defense. The defense isn't where it needs to be, but a lot of that I think is more physical concerns. I think he's a pretty smart player. Can get into passing lanes, can create events. Generally, I feel like he's been in the right spot when I've watched them. It's just, the defensive shortcomings are more from, physical tools. So Josh Giddey's my penultimate pick.
Penultimate pick. Wow.
Penultimate, yeah.
You're studying for the SAT there?
Not to be confused with the Frisbee team out of West Philadelphia.
I think Giddey is really, really talented. He's really, really skilled as a passer, playmaker, ball handler. I like the moxie he plays with. I like that he seems a little bit arrogant. Like I kind of like that about him. And he's
an Aussie, man.
Yeah, it's not in like a I don't know how to explain it, but it's not in a I'm better than like I'm better than you type of thing. It's just like a very competitive type of arrogance he has. And I don't know. I just kind of like everything about him aside from the shooting, but the shooting is really worrying. And even his finishing has not been particularly good, right?
That's probably that to me is the bigger worry.
Yeah. Do you think that's does you think that's like a touch thing, or do you think it's a decision making thing?
It's a strength thing more than anything else. I actually like his touch. But
Pause.
I think it's like I buy the touch, I buy the floater, I buy the creativity. He's not very strong for his size. He's also not very athletic. But like I think he's more like the guys in that mold. A guy that, for example, that reminds me of a little bit is Rubio. Rubio is more agile, but I think Giddey's got more potential as a shooter than Rubio, and as
He's
a finisher
bigger
than
too.
Rubio. He's bigger, yeah. So I think he's like a great connecting piece. I think it's the perfect situation next to a ball dominant guy like Shea. So that he's my penultimate pick, and then my ultimate pick is Trevor Keels. No, I'm just kidding. Don't remove that from the record. I should take a defender here. But fuck it. I'm going to say no. I'm going to take Alperen Şengün, who I've been talking about for a while. I really love the dude's game. This might be a bias just from the aesthetics of it. We don't see too many players like him besides a guy like him.
Only good center from Turkey I can remember.
Yeah. The only one who's not a right-wing nut job. But I think there's a lot to like here. I am down on the defense. I can't lie. That's why I kept pushing back. If I really wanted to pick for defense, I would have gone with a guy like Mark Williams or Jalen Duren. And the reality is that's probably a weak point of my team. Besides Mobley, I don't really have an interior presence on defense. And as you saw in the playoffs, Mobley has his flaws as an interior presence. But I am betting on he's going to get bigger. And I'm betting on a guy like Şengün getting bigger and be able to cause some mismatch on the other end. You look at his numbers, 15 points a game, 9 rebounds, 4 assists, doesn't turn the ball over a lot. 1.5 to 1 turnover ratio, assist turnover ratio for a big is pretty good. Has shown that he can occasionally step out and hit the three. How much can he get that to volume? I don't know. But he has a little bit of range. If anything, he's certainly not paint bound. The free throw shooting isn't bad, so that lends a little bit of credence there. And just the footwork and just how you can do so many creative things with him, in terms of dribble handoffs, in terms of screening, in terms of posting him up. He's a really fun bench player and a guy that I think I have a lot of guys on my team who are really good players, and you like them to have the ball in their hands, but you also like them to get the ball going downhill. Jaden Ivey, Tyrese Maxey, right? And when they can get the ball with a little bit of a head start and get a full head of steam, and they don't have to make decisions, and that part of the play can be taken care of by someone else. It's not to say that they're not capable of those things, but that can unlock them to an even higher level. I'm going to go Alperen Şengün.
Yeah, I mean, I've talked about this before. Şengün for me is just like a no draft, no acquire, no trade for, no sign guy. Just because I think the defense is so fucking. It's so bad. But
how much do you think Houston?
He's the one guy on that team. I'm just like, sorry, buddy, you don't get to use the. Card.
You could be on Boston and it would still be awful.
Yeah, it's brutal, man. Like that game at the Garden when Quickly dropped 40 on them. Watching some of his defensive possessions is just like.
But Quickly's an amazing player.
He is, but that was it wasn't just that Quickly was torching him. It was just like. Dude, this is ridiculous. What the hell are you even doing out there on defense half the time? And he's a center. You should have some understanding of
that is something I always harp on, by the way. Right? So it's a little bit ironic, but I kept seeing him and he's this guy's so good offensively. I have to take him. But yeah.
There is, the offensive stuff with him, he has games where you're like, is this guy an all-star offensive player? Is that what he is? And he might be. He might be that good on offense. The defense is just so bad. And then yeah, I just feel like the threshold for how valuable centers are that you have to dedicate a shit ton of offensive usage to is it's fine, but if the defense,
but you have to beat Jokic, right? For that to be worth it,
right? And it's just, but it's how do you beat Jokic, right? Is it going to be with a center that makes him work but can't defend? I don't know. I'm not saying and it's probably wrong to look how do we beat Jokic, right? It's how do you beat the Nuggets? That's the thing, not how do you beat Jokic. Jokic obviously is a huge piece of that. But yeah, I totally get it. I had him ranked. I did rank him, so he didn't even get the Kispert treatment, but I did rank him. He was at 35 on my initial board, but once you brought up Kispert, I put Kispert over him. So Şengün is now 36th out of the 37 players I eventually ranked. So shout out to him for not being dead last. God, I hate this. I'm gonna hate pick this guy just because it feels like this is probably a good place to do it. God, I hate him. Do I have to pick him? I don't know. I mean, let me see. Hold on. I got to do a little. Let me do a little basketball
You got
reference.
to tell us who it is afterwards.
I will. I mean, I'm either gonna pick him or I'm gonna pick somebody who I hate a little bit less, or not. Actually, somebody I don't hate at all. But hold on. Let's see. Do a little basketball reference comp here. See if I have any justification for this. Man, no, I can't do it.
Oh, is it Io DeSumo?
No, it's not Io. All right. This sucks. I'm gonna take Scotty Barnes.
Oh yeah.
Taking
I probably
Scotty
should have
Barnes
taken
here.
him. I needed wing defense. I hate non-shooters. What can I say?
Yeah, I really don't like him at all. But the other guy I was like tempted to take is Sohan, and Sohan makes him look like fucking Ray Allen. So, yeah, Scotty Barnes here. I had him 25th. I got to be clear though, like a lot of the stuff with hating on Scotty. I mean, he might even be. He probably is underranked by us, undervalued by us when we're doing this exercise, just because like he got. I mean, the way they were talking about him right after his rookie year was so ridiculous. Then he had the whole thing.
He won Rookie of the Year, right?
Yeah, he won Rookie of the Year, which was even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
And then he obviously had the thing at the Garden last year. He's like talking shit to Grimes, and it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, shut up, man. But he is like he does have talent. Like he is like a do everything wing. He's just not a primary guy, and the shooting obviously is a concern. But he's still just 20 years old. Just finished his second year in the league. I think you take the shot. Sorry, he's 21 years old. But I think I have to like he put up 15, 7, and 4 on 54 true shooting in the second year in the league. Like I'm not saying that's amazing, but that isn't nothing. And like he's been an impact player on the floor. Like his team, the Raptors have been better with him on the floor, I believe. So I will just go with him here, but like it does give me some joy to have taken Franz second and taken Scotty Barnes. It's my 15th and final pick of the draft.
Not as much joy as it gave me to watch Franz just fucking shit on him in the tournament.
Yeah.
So.
I'll just name the guys that I had left. So of the 37 players I ranked, we took 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I must be missing somebody. Somebody is missing. I don't know. This doesn't really make sense. But these are the guys I had left. I had Sohan at 28. I had Tari at 29. I had Dern at 30. I had Mark Williams at 31. I had Herb Jones at 34. And then I had Andrew Nembhard at 37. So, yeah.
Nembhard I do like a lot. Like I can really shoot.
Yeah, I like Nembhard a lot. I just, like, I'll put it this way. I like Quickly a shit ton, right? And I like clowning Tyrese Halliburton. But at the end of the day, yeah, I can sit here and talk to you about like the two-way stuff and whatever, but like we haven't seen Quick hasn't had to be the guy for a full season. He's never had to just be the offensive creator of a team for a full season. And like while I believe that he could do it, he hasn't done it. And so like I have to weigh I at least like it's subjective, but like in some instances you have to give the benefit of the doubt to the person who has done it, And like again, we like shitting on Tyrese Halliburton, but like let's be real, like it's not like Halliburton was just out there like, oh, he put up like 14 and 6. What a solid season. Like, no, the guy like what do we use? Like 21 and 10 or something, right? So he's been a highly effective player. Like you mentioned, the pull-up shooting has been ridiculous with him. So like Andrew Nembhard, I think he actually could be like if you put a gun in my head and you're like him or Cole Anthony, I'd be like Nembhard. Like I'd pick him over a lot of guys that I think people would pick over him just on name value. But from what I've seen of Nembhard, I think he's a real player, man. And it would not surprise me if he like gets a shot somewhere. Maybe if a team gets injured and they have to make a pickup or something. I'd like to see him get a shot. I think he's worth it. Like him and Peyton Pritchard are two guys that I like. Pritchard didn't even rank in this, and I actually like Pritchard a lot too. But like, it's hard to rank those guys when even their teams kind of they seem like very much capped with like no potential to get a larger role with the teams they're on, And I just think it's like it's really hard to rank because of that. So that's why I had Nemhard last, even though I really like him.
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. It's interesting you didn't have Cole at all, right?
No, I didn't. I like Colo. I think he's a fun player.
Yeah, solid player for sure. So if we were to compare our start, let's do this maybe.
Oh yeah, I can name the rosters here for you if you want.
Yeah, go for it.
All right, so Stacy had Anthony Edwards, Paolo Banchero, LaMelo Ball, Evan Mobley, Jaden McDaniels, Tyrese Halliburton, Tyrese Maxey, the Tyreses. He had Jalen Green, Devin Vassell, Chet Holmgren, Amen Thompson, Ivy, Jaden Ivey, that is, Corey Kispert, Josh Giddey, Alperen Şengün. My team is Victor Wembanyama, Franz Wagner, Cade Cunningham, Desmond Bain, Scoot Henderson, Jalen Williams, Benedict Mathurin, Keegan Murray, Emmanuel Quickley, Trey Murphy, Quentin Grimes, Walker Kessler, Jabari Smith Jr., AJ Griffin, and Scotty Barnes. So never get it twisted. I'm a bigger Knicks fan than Stacy, which this exercise clearly proves. Yeah, I guess my starting five.
I was about to pick Trevor Keels, man.
That's true.
Nick,
I think so. I'm like doing this. I think my starting five would be Cade, Bane, Franz. I think I'm going to start Wemby at the 4 right now, and then put Kessler at the 5. I don't really know. Like, I need to see how Wemby looks, but isn't he saying he wants to play the 4 right now?
Yeah.
Isn't that like what they're listing him as? So I guess I'll honor his desire for now. That would be my starting lineup.
So Franz, Wemby, Cade, Bane, and
Kessler.
Oh, you didn't take a big till late, I guess.
Yeah. Bigs you always get value late, right? So.
And you have a big. I
yeah.
mean, your shortest player right now is what? Cade?
I think my shortest player is
Bane. But he's like 6'5".
Yeah.
So.
Well, it's like my three shortest players are Scoot, Bane, and Quickly, and I don't think those guys are.
Yeah, I'm talking about your starting lineup.
Yeah,
like your starting lineup is all 6'5", 6'6", and above. Yeah, so mine would be Ant, Paolo, LaMelo, Mobley, and McDaniels. I would normally be worried about the rebounding in that lineup, and I do think Kessler poses some problems for a guy like Mobley. But I'm still pretty comfortable in the matchup for me. I feel like I have a little more shot creation right now, but I do think Cade has a lot of potential. And I do wonder, how do you distribute touches between Paolo and Ant, right? Who are both creators.
Yeah.
Whereas I think
LaMelo is
a little bit better between your guys.
Yeah, and I think LaMelo is obviously a very good passer creator, but he's another guy like he's going to take a lot of shots, right? Which is fine. Like I think you want him to explore those things. But like this is my concern that I've always had with LaMelo. I mean, I ranked him, just to be clear, I had him 5th on my board.
That's where I took him.
Yeah. Like I think there's the upside with him is crazy because the ball handling and vision is ridiculous. But like his feel, his pure passing feel is tremendous. And obviously in transition, he's something spectacular. But when I talk about feel, I'm talking about like understanding, oh, this guy needs a touch here. How do I feed this guy the ball in a spot that he wants to go to work? I think those are the things that he's lacking right now. And it sucks that he got hurt because I think Clifford could really help him with that. And I think he would have helped him a lot last year. I still think, obviously, Clifford is still being there, so that's a good thing for him. And I'm actually pretty excited to see how he does this year because I think people are sleeping on him a lot now because of the season that it was kind of a lost season for him, right? It sucked. And
would you take him over Halliburton?
Yeah, I had him ranked over Halliburton. I've talked about this to Prez a lot. Like I had LaMelo 5th. I had Halliburton 6th. My top 6 was Edwards, Wemby, Cade, Franz, LaMelo, Halliburton. And admittedly, with Cade, like it's a lot of projection. It's like it is a lot. I just am betting on the talent and what I feel like the ceiling flashes with him are really, really tantalizing, and I'm just like gonna roll with that. Roll with the pedigree he had coming in as a prospect, the size and ball handling combination. Like I think he's worth taking the roll of the dice on.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I don't know. I thought this exercise was actually really fun. I guess like my bench, like the guys I would actually play, I have to play Scoot because like you have to play Scoot. So probably Scoot, Jalen Williams, quickly, Keegan, and Matherin and Murphy can fight for the last spot.
Yeah, and I would probably give the edge to. It's crazy to think. I mean, I think Matherin might have a better chance of. I think personally, I think Trey Murphy you want in there somehow, right? I think if there's a 6'9" guy with his range, you find ways to make that work. So I think Matherin would probably be fighting with quickly, right? Or your other, or even Scoot, right?
Yeah. It's really hard actually because like we picked a team, but managing this much talent would be so hard. I don't even know how you'd keep guys
Well,
happy.
I think there's a few takeaways from this. Is one, like shooting is the easiest thing for the best thing I think to bet on, or at least we feel that way. But I also think it shows how like there aren't just like I don't think either of us like Walker Kessler is probably the most or Walker Kessler and Mobley are the only two really developed big, right? The guys we left like Şengün, to your point, is not a good defender. Some of the other bigs that we looked at, Duran, not a good defender at all. Mark Williams, still a low-minute player. Big development takes a lot of time. And for that matter, like, as a Knicks fan and someone who has been touting this horn for a while, I don't think that's a phrase, tooting this horn for a while. Like, it speaks to the fact that Mitchell Robinson being an impact player from day one at 19 was pretty impressive. But and that's another takeaway for me is, like, I don't think either of us really liked a lot of the bigs that were available. That's to say, this is not a centers don't matter thing. It's more of a thing where, like, it takes time.
Yeah. I think with all this stuff too, it's like, again, like I thought the hardest part in this was balancing like upside and established production. And, our guy, like, is a guy like Quickly, for example, who has produced, does he have a lot more upside or
compared
not
to like
so
Jalen
much?
Green, right? Like,
Right.
I think that's an interesting debate. So
yeah, like Jalen Green, like I think Quickly is way better than Jalen Green today. Like not even close. But you're not just building this team for today, and you can't just rank these guys this young purely based on what they are today, right? You have to bake in projection, and like I think there's no question to me that Quickly is better than Jalen Green now. But to this point, like I had Jalen Green ranked 9, I had Quickly ranked 16. So like it's not easy. It's pretty variable, and I think this exercise really gets through it. And again, like even like a guy like Reeves who doesn't technically count, right? Like he would have definitely gotten picked in this if he had, if his rookie, if he'd been drafted.
Grimes, you took Grimes, so
yeah, I would have taken Reeves over Grimes. The fact that he's like, I mean, what he showed in the playoffs is fucking real, and he's a really good ball handler at his size, and he's not like he's clearly shown.
Shooter,
he's shown his willingness and kind of comfort in stepping up in big moments, critical moments. He was a really clutch shooter for the Lakers throughout the playoffs. So, I definitely would have taken him over Grimes, and I love Grimes, but like, yeah, he's a way better defender than Reeves is, but Reeves isn't actually a bad defender. And, the fact that he can create at his size just is really, really impactful.
Yeah, for sure.
All right. I think that's a good place to end it. Stacy, unless you had anything else that you wanted to mention before we get out of here.
I did have a quick question, super important. I think Mark Zuckerberg opened at minus 300 over Elon Musk. Do you have any thoughts on that matchup?
I hope that I don't know if I can say what I hope for that for that matchup, for what results I hope for. I just hope that nobody wins, but everybody wins. If you catch my drift. So
So you hope nobody, but who? If you were betting, if quote unquote you were a betting man.
Oh yeah, and I'm taking fucking Facebook boy.
Really? 100%. But Musk is like way bigger.
Yeah, but Musk looks like he's probably, I mean, God knows how much fucking blow that guy does every day of his life. He's on way too many drugs. Zuckerberg is probably on like drugs, but he seems like he's on a better cocktail than Musk. Musk is
he's heading towards Leo at the end of Wolf of Wall Street territory.
Yeah, I mean, he's heading towards like fucking what is it? Marlon Wayans in Requiem for a Dream territory.
Oh wow. Got dark.
Oh man. Yeah, look, there's no winners in that fight. Let's just put it that way. All right, Stacy, let the people know where they can find you and plug anything you'd like to plug.
You can find me at Stacy Patton 89. Yeah, nothing to plug right now. Oh, the Liberty kicked the shit out of the Aces yesterday. That was pretty fun. So I'll plug that and all of the WNBA coverage at the Strickland.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. Check out all the WNBA coverage that we have going on. Matt obviously been writing all that stuff too, and so has Gigi, who's been doing a good job for us as well. So kudos to both of them, and hopefully everybody's enjoying that content. I'm nothing to plug personally, so maybe just check out the work at the Strickland. Check out the Instagram, give us a follow on there, give us a follow on YouTube if you haven't done so already. And aside from that, I have nothing to plug other than Bet Online, which is your number one source for all your betting needs. Once again, that is our show for today. I hope everybody has a great week, and I will see you on Friday.